One grounded in scripture, the other drawn to the stars' energy and intuition. Today, Christian women and New Age women sit face to face to unpack their deepest beliefs. Two spiritual paths, one conversation. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Daff. Let's get into it. And the first prompt is, prayer and manifestation are two sides of the same coin.
I'll get started. So I believe that there are two spiritual forces. There's either God or there's the devil. And I believe you can get your power from either.
Okay. That's crazy. Okay. So I did see like the first 13 minutes of this, so I'm be honest. And that when I first saw that, I was like, that's what it is. And I figured out why. And there's going to be more. I know there's going to be so much more in this video. Like there's going to be a little more of a judgmental tone and attitude towards the New Agers, coming from the Christians. And it makes sense because if in your reality, there is an actual hell and devil's actually tricking people into going to hell. And if I believe that the New Agers were of the devil or worshiping the devil, I would stop at very few things to try to, convince them that they're in the wrong. And that's kind of sad. And there's one other thing I want to say about this, because this is very important. Because when I deconstructed from Christianity, I had a lot of difficult conversations. And one of the things that hurt the most is when it's just the other person not understanding you, the other person not having space in their reality to consider your point of view. And so they have to see it as something of Satan, or whatever their point of view is, that's how they're going to see it. And the only thing I want is just for the Christians to know that when you say things like that, it's really hurtful, right? Like you got to understand, we all have different realities we live in. And so if I'm a New Ager, let's say I am serving the devil, saying that being kind of having this, that's kind of an attitude right off the bat. And saying, one serves the devil, there's very few things that's more offensive than that, and more kind of triggering. And you're not going to get anywhere positive by using such triggering language. So it's just not wise at the end of the day.
For one, God gives us good gifts. He gives good gifts to his children. Satan, the enemy, also gives gifts to his children as well. So I believe that you either pray to God or you submit to the devil, and then.
Nope. Okay. I'm probably pausing way too much, but this is all I've been thinking about for the last 5 years. Okay. Ever since I deconstructed, my life has become a puzzle where I'm just piecing things together, like trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here from a larger picture. You kind of go crazy for a while because you don't know what's true. You're living as if anything could happen and there's no protection. There's no reason for anything. Like it's just a crazy mindset to be in. And so I've been piecing things together. So literally, who is this? Jubilee? If you see this, please, if you have a men's version, I'm your guy, okay? I'm a pastor's kid. I've been through the whole gambit, and this is all I think about. So, but what she's saying about the devil giving gifts as well. I love Cat Williams had a statement saying that the devil can't create anything, so he can't give gifts to his children.
These people are not powerful. Satan can't create anything. That includes blessings for his people.
Let's actually break this down metaphysically, as they say. So the highest ideal of God is that he's all powerful, right? Omnipotent. And one perspective of that could be there's just no power. Like there's other powers, but it's like human power versus Superman power. Right? Like Superman is all powerful compared to a human. There's literally nothing the human can do except for have kryptonite. Let's say kryptonite doesn't exist. God doesn't have kryptonite. So there's other powers, but God has, he's the most. There's nothing that even comes close to his power. Or it's the perspective of God literally has all of the power, or all of the power is God. I believe the latter, that God has all power, that there's no other power, because power has to have a source. So there's no other source capable of producing power outside of God. Satan has no, the idea of Satan is that he was an angel, a creation of God, literally an extension of God. How can something that's from God ever turn against God? Can we answer that? It literally doesn't make sense. And the only reason why we believe it is because it's in the scriptures that is your belief about this world. And so I believe that God has all the power, and that Satan, the only way he gives the illusion of having power is through manipulation. And we see this in the Genesis account. And even when he tempts Jesus, he can only use words to try to get into your mind. The mind is truly the battlefield.
And he just gives you what you want based on that. So I don't think it's the same thing.
Yeah, I would say that I think there's a creator-creation distinction. I think that manifestation typically centers the universe or oneself, whereas prayer centers the Lord Jesus Christ.
Right. And prayer is more like saying, Jesus, you can do this for me, not leaning on your own strength. Whereas with manifestation, it's like saying, I can attract this. I can, through my words, attract this life that I want. I can do all of these things in my own strength or in my own power. And yes, there's a concept in the word where it talks about there's life and death in the power of the tongue, but that's really been perverted in so many different ways, because the life and death in your tongue, right, it's all centered around Christ, right? Not I am my own God. I can do things in my own strength. It's on the cornerstone and the foundation of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Another
And
common
I
misconception.
believe manifestation leaves God out of it. They try to do it on their own, while
that's
prayer is
not true.
us going to God about it and him manifesting things for us in his will. I know that the word says, ask and it shall be given to you. You have not because you ask not. And I know that that has been twisted to mean like whatever I ask for is what I'm going to get, but that's not the case. The word also says that you have not, you ask and you have not because you ask amiss, which means that you are asking with selfish intention. The way that believers should be going about prayer is submitting ourselves to God, and then the desires of our hearts change through our lifestyle. So the things that we ask of God end up being within the will of God because of that submission to him. So that's
I could
really
get with
what
that.
I consider
I
the
get with that, too.
distinction.
Okay, and I didn't know that we worked for the devil. That's hilarious. Because the misconception that spirituality is directly connected to the devil's work is really hilarious, because the devil is a projection placed upon people who don't know that we still operate within love. We talk to God and the God within us. So we pray to God. We give God thanks. God is the glory for the story, and God is within all of us. So I feel as if prayer, you're praying to God, and when the manifestation, you still have to do the work, because without, faith without work is dead. So to bring it into physical manifestation, you have to walk through the door of value that God opened for you. So when you pray to God, you give thanks in advance because you know that God is going to bestow you. God is going to show you good grace. So I feel like if it's not the devil, I don't know how the devil was brought into the conversation. I know he was present.
Facts.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Because, hilarious. Because I don't work for the devil. I work for God. We get God-given gifts.
crazy.
And it's come from a higher self. And the universe is somehow, it does get tied into it. And I do understand how it can seem like we sometimes take God out of it. However, that's one of the things with spirituality, has different levels. Just how Christianity projects upon us as we're doing the devil work. Some people in spirituality utilize the universe, but the universe is still within all of us because it's the universe. So everything outside of you is also within you. So just like God is. So it's a separate but the same within itself. So we don't call on to the devil. We don't do the devil's work. I feel like prayer, you're still praying to God. That's only somebody's perception of what spirituality is and manifestation. We don't leave God out of it because God is within us. So if you leave out God, you're leaving out yourself.
Yeah, I would say that.
Okay. What's tough is that I know, like, listening to her, it's easy to dismiss her because she's using strange language like universe, understand, and stuff like that. But that's the whole thing with New Age, is that there's a higher, or I'll just say another level of understanding of the power of words. And so even, there's been studies done with ICE imaging, how they could speak a word or even play music and stuff, and the ICE will react to that command or whatnot. And I'm sure you could look that up on the internet and find it. So, words are very powerful. I mean, even in the Bible, it says God created, or in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So we try hard to say, instead of saying like understand, meaning you're putting yourself under something, We say understand because it's to bring it closer to our heart, to our source. So we say it's not like education where they're just giving you things. It's like revelation where it's coming from within. So you say understand. And I just think if we could learn how to understand each other, right? Or understand each other, she would start making a lot more sense. Because basically what she's saying, put it this way, in John again, it says, and the Word was with God and the Word was God. And then it goes on to say that everything that was created through God. So there's nothing that was created that wasn't through him. There's no part of reality. There's no fabric of reality without his stitching within it. There's nothing nowhere that could be, even nothing, he's there. So then there's the understanding that, well, God must be in me as well. And then also in the Garden of Eden, God formed Adam out of the dust of the ground, right? And then, that was just a corpse until God breathed the breath of life into him. God literally took his inner spirit and breathed it into Adam. And then that's when Adam became, right? Other than that, Adam is just a bunch of minerals and, proteins and stuff, elements. And so there's this recognition, this intimacy that you then have with God once you understand that you're a fractal of God. You are a spark of the divine. You were, God thought of you as he brought you into the world. And that just like how we have to think of something in order to manifest it, someone had to think of this microphone, and in every way, every detail, there's no part of the microphone that it didn't think of. And then that's how it got manifested. And so likewise with us, there's no part of us that God hasn't thought of, before creating. And we're a direct extension of that thought. And so to study the thought, to study the art, to study the instrument, you get to learn about the mind that created it. You get to learn about your source. And so that's the whole God is in me, God and I are one. If they touch on it some more, I will give some other fun examples, but that's a big misconception too, that New Agers think that they literally are God and they could snap their finger and create a universe. That's not what we're saying. That'd be absurd to think that you could do that. But maybe you could walk on water.
I understand where you're coming from as far as you guys don't intentionally pray to the devil. The Christian perspective would be that anything that is not God is anti-Christ. And also there's a thing called objective morality.
Okay. She's really good. I just want to say I gotta stop apologizing because this is just the video. If you want to watch it, you can watch it. So she, first off, again, kind of condescending or like not being sensitive to how those words would affect the other ladies, saying that I know you don't think so. I know you're almost intelligent enough to understand the truth. It has this like disrespect to it of like, how you gonna tell someone what they think, and if they are of the mind where they are not being coherent in their thoughts, if they are insane, you have to talk to them differently in order to reach them. Saying, I know you don't think so, that's not going to help anyone. That's not going to get us anywhere. But again, I understand it. In the Christian world, this is a scary world where hell exists. That's a terrifying world. And so I understand the seriousness and the legitimate, seeing it as just legitimate. Like, no, this is just the truth. But that's the thing. It's like, no one person can decide the truth when you were talking about beliefs. When it comes to beliefs, it's all a matter of opinion. And so I want us to also listen to how matter of fact the Christian side maybe talks versus how more open and receptive the New Age side is.
Means that there has to be some good above us, some good higher than us. We're not capable of cultivating objective morality because we're not creator. That's why I mentioned the creator-creation distinction, because as far as I remember, I did not create the universe. I did not create the world that we live in. I did not create myself, let alone you guys who are here. So that means that somebody must be higher than me, and I have to be submitted to what that higher person is.
Come on, you telling me that's not condescending? It's like, so if A plus B equals C, you know, it's like it's like we believe the same thing. I'm gonna let the ladies talk. We believe the same thing though. It's just we use different language, so it's hard to understand what we're truly saying.
Which I believe is the Lord Jesus Christ, not just a random higher power or the universe, but I have to be submitted to his standard of goodness and mercy and kindness, everything else, and I can't cultivate that within myself because at the end of the day, I am not the creator.
In the most respectful way, I think hearing the devil be mentioned like makes my heart beat really fast. I don't even know how to like articulate things very well right now because I actually grew up Catholic and I went to Pepperdine, graduated as a Christian woman from that school, and I actually still go to church every Sunday. And I think I want to be respectful of what you believe in because I believe in pretty much the same thing too. But wait, no, but I would like to elaborate myself as well. I fully respect your beliefs. That's why we're here and that's why we're talking. But to be clear, I respect a higher power. I do believe that I operate more in faith more than many Christians do because Christians are basing their beliefs off of the word of people who were just as big of sinners as us, just as human as we were. So we don't know if everything they said was true. All I know is that my faith lies in the fact that I know and believe in that same type of surrender, that same type of goodness in this world, and operating from a place of kindness and grace and not judging people and operating from kindness and wanting what's best for the world. So when I manifest, it feels like prayer because I'm saying I surrender to the fact that I have no control over anything that's happening to me right now, and there is something bigger than me, and I want the world to be good. I want to do as little harm as possible and help as many people as possible. And I don't think that the devil is in me knowing that I live like that. And I think, if anything, the devil lives in a lot of judgment and the harm that we do looking at people saying, you work for the devil. I think that is the devil's work more than it is to be like, I understand you, I love you, I feel you, and I think that you all are human and just as valuable.
If I can just...
Okay, come on, guys, seriously. Who's throwing stones at that, right? Like, that was so much more open, so much more gracious, so much more understanding. But did you see her heart? She was like, that hurts my heart for you to speak that way to me. And even if you believe it, you could believe whatever you want, but to say that that's like saying you work for Hitler. That's so offensive. That's implying that you are evil, right? So there's the implications of it that feels judgmental, and judgment requires division. And so I think a good definition of Satan is division, is subtraction.
Is definitely self-power, and it centers the self again. I think it's even arrogant to say that we are God. When
I think it's arrogant to speak for what manifestation is.
No, you have to let me finish speaking. We just let you guys talk for a good 10 minutes.
Just want to say that we manifest and you don't.
Please let me communicate. So, Melanin actually said that the universe is you and I, and that God exists within her. So it sounds like there's not a common consensus among New Agers, which is a part of the reason that we don't believe in its validity. There are people who believe that they are God and that they're able to manifest their realities. And then there are people like you with more of a Christian background that still have that submission element. I would say that manifestation, for the most part, from people that I have heard speak even today, it does make themselves God, and it refuses submission. And I did want to circle back to the authority.
It doesn't make yourself God. It removes all that isn't God, which is to say it wakes up, because there's no such thing as something that's not God, right? There's no piece of reality. There's nothing that's real that we could say is a content of reality, and that content not be soaked and surrounded and completely embodied by the God. Only ignorance gives the impression, only lack of awareness, only in a devolved conscious state of living gives the projection, gives the appearance of that which isn't of God. That's the only way darkness can exist, is through a twisting of the light, right? It's through the absence of light. It's through the absence of truth that we see the devil. But that's just a matter of waking up.
Of scriptures. The Bible was written over the course of 1,600 years. It has 66 books, 40 plus authors, and there are hyperlinks throughout the entire scriptures. Scholars look at the Bible and they actually consider it the first hyperlinked book because of all the different consistencies. So there's a process called canonization that actually looks at the specific scriptures that we chose to put in the Bible because of their validity, because there were extracurricular historical sources that were actually telling the same story that's in the Bible. The Bible that we have today has 24,000 manuscripts in the original languages, Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. So when you start talking about Mary Magdalene or these extra biblical interpretations of scripture, it actually does a disservice to the scholarship that was done with the Bible.
Actually, I'd like to speak because I haven't yet. And so I wanted to address the prayer and manifestation point. I am a Christian, a believer. I believe in the Bible. I'm a pastor. And what I love most about God is that he allows us to choose.
You sound like a pastor.
Any attempt at control is witchcraft. And as believers, we have to be very careful about...
Okay, I'm sorry. I know I'm apologizing every time I have to at this point. Another major pillar of New Age spirituality, if I could speak for the whole, is the idea of letting go, the idea of non-doership, the idea of not being in control. The teaching I went through, I understood the ego to be three main beliefs. So the ego is a mental activity, right, that projects into our reality and distorts God's world. So the world you see is not the world God created. And we know this because if we believe the lie about someone, there's energy mixed into that vision of them. So it's an experience. The body experienced the reality of that projection, right? They're not smiling. They're like have a conniving grin, right? They're not confident. They're a psychopath, right? Like we distort reality, and actually the vibrational experience is different because that's what you're projecting out on them, that judgment. And so we realize as soon as we change our judgment, the experience changes. Suddenly that smile, the clouds go away and the smile radiates like a genuine smile. If we learn that they're actually a genuine person, right? Like, so beliefs are very powerful. And so we understand that the ego operates off of three net false beliefs: that it is in control, that it can actually be attached to things, and that it is lacking. Right? Every other sin, everything that's negative can be summed up in those three beliefs. One of those three beliefs are operating and projecting into your reality, if it could be called a sin. And so one of the major things about the ego is that it must control its environment. That's the evolution of our brain. That's our genetics from, thousands and thousands of years of being hunter-gatherer. We're programmed to survive. And in order to survive, you have to control. And if your hands are on the wheel, God's hands can't also be on the wheel. And so we say, let go. I'm in the river. Why would I fight to swim? Just go with the flow.
Walking in the fruit of the Spirit, walking in love.
Yes, and fruit is the only way right? You say we worship the devil. The only way, look, I am earnest. I've been through that. When I left Christianity, I've heard those voices just screaming in my mind that, oh no, you fell into the devil's trap. You've gone insane. All these different things. And I've had to look those things in the face and consider that they might be true. And so I try my best to take an honest look. And I found the best way to know what I truly believe, because I could say I believe a lot of things, but the best way I can know is the experience of my actions, the fruit of my actions, right? Am I experiencing more peace as I'm following these teachings in the New Age era? Am I experiencing more joy? Only no one can tell me what I'm experiencing. You have to know for yourself. And I think it's very evident when you're experiencing joy versus just a simple pleasure. It's very evident when you're just at peace for no reason. It's not because you're escaping or you're distracted in some way. And so you have to look at the fruit. And based off our fruit, if I could speak for the New Agers, the only reason why we believe this is because it's working. And that's where the respect has to come in. Like, it's a belief, it's your opinion. So don't try to oppress me, judge me off of an opinion. Let's just unify in what we do agree with, which is the only thing that matters, is how we live on this earth. If we show up with love, if we live like Christ, right? That's the only thing that matters. So we could unite on that. And everything else is opinion. We have to be man enough and woman enough to be like, you know what? I don't know if Jesus died on the cross the same way that I know that an apple is sweet. That's not the same level of knowing. One of them is just an interpretation of some scribbles on a page. The other is a extremely intimate experience that touches multiple senses, right? That's a higher truth than a belief. And so let's come together in reality, right? That's okay.
Allowing the grace for everyone to have made their own choices. I can't change y'all, and I'm not going to try to. Like, that is something that is between you guys and what you
why
believe.
do you feel like we need to be changed?
I don't, is what I'm saying. I don't. That is not to me.
Why do we need to submit? Like,
and that is up to you guys. So I'm not done yet. No. Just to finish. And so what I would answer to the question of prayer versus manifestation is I actually do believe that they're two sides of the same coin because I allow space for everyone's beliefs. And if you don't believe in Christ, regardless of what someone who does believe in him thinks, if the way that you practice your spirituality, whether it is in alignment with one religion or no religion at all, that is up to you. And it may be the same approach to worship or spiritual practice that prayer is for me. For me, approaches to spiritual practice and ritual are worship and prayer and communing with the Bible and speaking to and resting in God. And there are all these other spiritual practices out there. And so I wanted to inject that into the conversation because there has to be space for choice and the reality that there are different beliefs as opposed to sort of structuring the conversation as though that's not the reality.
See, so that's why
that was my two.
So I wanted to make the comment about good versus evil, God versus the devil. So there are many gods. There's one true God, Jesus Christ, and then there are other worldly gods.
Okay, again, look how matter of fact we're speaking. Is the tone, the expressions is the exact same as if I said an apple is sweet. An apple that I ate today was red. You know, the apple was a gala apple. It's called gala, right? Like, that's truth. I experienced that with my senses. That's a testimony of my senses. What she's talking about is an evaluation of symbols on a page, which I'm not trying to diminish it. I'm trying to break it down to its essence so we could see it more clearly, so we could get the magic, air off of it, right? There's so much magic around it. Let's just look at it plainly. It's not going to offend God. Right? That's not going to offend God to be like, okay, what is a book in essence? A book in essence is paper and ink arranged in very specific patterns, to which we then take those patterns and apply them to a mental framework that we created, that our environment, the people we know, our teachers help us create this framework, these filing cabinets, all these mental concepts. And we apply them to the symbols and we gain meaning through that co-creation. And so that meaning leads to belief, but that is not the same thing as actual experiential truth. And so it's important, if we're speaking, especially in a debate, we can't say that Jesus died on the cross. We have to say, I believe Jesus died on the cross. That's the more accurate statement. You can say whatever you want, but the more accurate statement is, I believe this, I believe that. It may be hard to be mindful of that when you're speaking, but just listen to how the language is not as accurate as it could be. And accuracy when it comes to truth is paramount.
When I say, oh, people are praying to a God, you can be praying to the devil and not even realizing it. Like, I had an abortion where I had 2 abortions. I didn't know that I was sacrificing my child to the devil because I was making a blood covenant. So it's just like where the Bible says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. So Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So if you're praying to God, you have to go through Jesus Christ. If you're not, then you're praying to the God of this world, which is the devil.
That's not true. Opinion. That's not. You don't have to have a relationship with Jesus to have a relationship with God. Because
John
14:6. It does not. That's your life and your reality and your perspective, and that's what makes you closer to God. And if it makes you a better person, that should leave less room for judgment of how people have a closer relationship with God. And if they're operating out of love, light, and joy, and that's really all that really matters, because a lot of Christianity is based and rooted in slavery, evilness, and it came from a place where Black people wasn't even allowed really to practice it out loud. We had to do it very silently. So if you want to get to the origin and the root of where it even came from, it wasn't even really practiced it wasn't even for us. Caucasian people didn't even want Black people to even have a relationship with Jesus at all. We had African spirituality and several practices way before Christianity even came into play. So the relationship with Jesus is based on individuality, and what keeps your relationship with God is how your daily practices, worship, journaling, meditation, yoga, whatever you need to do to keep your relationship with God open is not deemed, it should not be deemed as the devil work, because it's not going through Jesus' one channel. That channel does not work for everybody, because when I left Christianity, I became a better person. I felt more accepted. I felt more closer to God outside of me, and then also awakening the God within me and knowing that I was able to co-create my reality. And I do think that prayer and manifestation is of the same coin, because I pray.
Because like being a fractal of the sun, being a light, right? You illuminate just like the sun illuminates. So being a fractal of the creator, we create just like God creates. So this life we're living is a co-creation. Our thoughts shape it, right? I already said how beliefs project, with the energy that you feel, the disgust, the anger, the discomfort in your chest is interwoven with the experience of what you're seeing in a person, what you think you're seeing. And so that you stamp that memory with that emotion, and it's actually more memorable the higher, more exaggerated the emotions, but you distort reality and you start seeing people as in a way that you feel, not in who they actually are. And so, of course, we co-create. Of course, we speak and manifest things through our words and actions just being an extension of words. I really do think it's one and the same thing. It's just two different frameworks.
Out to God, and then I also allow the God within me to receive what it is that I'm calling out.
I love manifestation because I have to surrender. It cannot come in unless I surrender. You have to know what it is that you want, and then you have to be okay with it not coming in. You have to have acceptance. That I'll never forget. I was on the island. I was pregnant. I don't mean to get emotional, but I was having my daughter, and and COVID was going on, and I wasn't in the States and everything, and I just remember looking around and being like, what if this is it? Like, what if this is all I get? I know I want better for myself. I know I don't want to be in this situation, but if this is it, I'm gonna accept it and I'm gonna make the most of it. And I had to find joy in what I had in the moment. And that's, the reason I don't say.
And when you, I feel for her so much. She's my new favorite. Tina was my favorite. Now she is. When you let go and find more joy in the moment, your frequency change and your environment changes, right? Your environment is a amalgamation of people, places, and things, right? And a lot of it is people, right? A lot of our world is other people. We're social animals. And so how we show up to other people affects how they show up to us. Right? So if we're more joyful, if we're more open, if we're more courageous, if we're displaying these fruits of the Spirit and finding them in the present, then our life's going to change. We're going to get everything we wanted and more, like Solomon. God still gave Solomon wealth. He gave him authority and power and all these different things along with wisdom. And so if our earthly fathers give good gifts, if my dad bought my brothers and I, a Xbox One and a PlayStation 4, and plus other things. If they spoiled us, then how much gooder is our Creator? How much better? And so that's manifestation, is understanding that is less of you, and you accept things for how they are. You grow spiritually, you produce more fruit, and you manifest your highest desires. We all have dreams, and that's God-given. God gives the dream of an oak tree to a seed, and then it chases that dream until it becomes an oak tree. You know, it's not like or I don't know, maybe we did, but it's not like before birth we were like, all right, I want to decide to do these things. I think it's an inspiration, right? It's something that comes from God. And so just like we make choices based off that inspiration, I do believe Christians make choices based off that inspiration, you know, that movement towards love and compassion, you know, that brings you to pray for people, to pray for healing, to pray for prosperity, to pray for wisdom, peace, joy, to pray for understanding, clarity. You know, I think the people in manifestation who are doing it right, they aren't praying for, you know, millions of dollars. You know, they're praying for fulfillment in what you do and our purpose. They're praying that their light may shine, you know, in the world and be valuable to the world. And the size of your bank account is the size of how much value you're producing often. So yeah, all right.
God, it has nothing to do with the fact that I don't believe in divinity or that I don't believe in a higher power. It really is semantics, honestly, because so many people will say God and then they'll use it to manipulate or they'll use it to control. I just feel so much more pure saying divinity because then I know that I don't have to take all the history with me. It's just, you know, it's us right now. Then, you know, once you surrender and you accept and you find joy in that moment and it's you and divinity and it's just, you know, it's just y'all, then miracles happen. I've had so many miracles in my life, you know, and I've never been baptized, you know, but I've always just, that's how I grew up. I've church hopped all my life. I've meditated, did yoga.
Okay, I gotta say this, baptism is cool too. To be baptized in living water. I don't think she's dissing it, but I just wanted to add, you know, I got to add all the sense I have for this video. This is my one chance. Jubilee, seriously. I will fly out. I'll run there, whatever I got to do. I want to be on the men's one.
Kundalini yoga in LA. You know, when I was an 8-year-old girl, I've been to the Buddhist temple. That's just, some of us just grow up in a lot of different, you know, spiritualities. We meet a lot of different people. You get to fast, you get to talk to other people about fasting. Like, I just love how, whether it's prayer or manifestation, that I can talk to other people, I can reach out to other people, I can embrace other people. I don't have to just be tolerant. I can embrace. And that's what I really love about this path. So that's